Hey there, John Gibson here, back with some more information, more ways to help you with your PCOS and losing weight and all that fun stuff. Now today, what I want to do with you, the thing we're going to talk about is actually a way you can work with your appetite. Now, I want to share a quick story with you about appetite and how PCOS affects that. But first, if you want to work with me, if you want my help in creating a plan specific to you, okay, to help you succeed at losing weight with PCOS, improving your symptoms, all those things, go ahead and go to fatextractionmethod.com, okay? fatextractionmethod.com, and I will help you create a plan, okay? Now, I want to share a quick story, okay? If you followed me for a while, you may have heard this story before, but I want you to you know, for those of you who haven't heard from me before, I want to make sure you understand how this works, okay? Now, several years ago, I remember I drove home from work one day and I pulled into my driveway and there was my wife. She was sitting there holding my two kids. And I thought, you know, inside I was going, oh, here she is. She's waiting for dad to come home. And that wasn't the case, okay? What was really happening is my wife wanted the car. So I pulled in the driveway. As soon as I get out of the car, she's like, get in the car. We need to go. And so we put the kids in the car seats and we take off and go to the grocery store. Now, before I can actually pull into the parking stall, before I'm completely stopped, my wife has jumped out and she's run into the grocery store. And so I guess I'm sitting in the car, right? I'm gonna wait for her. So I sit out in the car and I'm waiting for her, talking to the kids, hanging out. And it seemed like only 5 minutes later, she comes back carrying bags of groceries. And she comes down, she sits in the car, and she starts opening up everything. And as she's pulling everything out, it's almost like it's Christmas morning. She pulls out donuts and pastries and cookies and all of these things. And I'm sitting here kind of looking at her going, are you okay? And I remember asking her that, are you okay? And she stopped and she broke down to tears and said, no, I'm not. I'm not okay. And she felt out of control. Now, again, I helped her lose weight with PCOS already. She'd lost 60-something pounds. And she'd kept it off for a short period of time, but her cravings were becoming absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. And I didn't know why. And so again, just like I've done with PCOS in every area, I've got a master's degree in exercise physiology, so I'm constantly looking at research. And so I went and looked at the research. And how does PCOS affect appetite? What does it do? And there was a lot of studies that showed that women with PCOS tend to have bigger appetites. And we didn't know what it was at the time. But as years have gone on, we found out that there's something called leptin resistance. There's a hormone that we release that actually blocks our appetite. But unfortunately with PCOS, a lot of times that hormone, when it gets to the brain, there's no receptors for it to bind to. And so it can't do what it needs to do. So what I want to do today is I actually want to kind of talk to you about some specific things you can do, okay? So with PCOS, how do you beat that? And I actually want to share a recent study. And I got my notes all over here. But let me grab my notes really quick. So first off, we need to understand something that I teach a lot of people, and it's what I call my fat extraction method. You see, when I was trying to figure out how do I help women with PCOS, I sat down and I said, okay, what are all the issues that these women run into? Number one is appetite and craving. So how do I work with that? Number two is how do I actually get your body to stop storing fat? Number three is how do I actually pull fat out of your fat cells so you're using that and losing more fat? And number four is how do I get your muscles to be able to handle more of that fat? Does that make sense? Okay, so what I did is I sat down with the appetite, said, okay, how do I figure all these things out? And recently I found this thing. There was an interesting study, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But here's what you need to do, okay? One way that you can work with your appetite is to make sure that the majority of the food you're eating is coming from whole foods, okay? Not processed foods. And I'll explain what that means in just a minute. But the majority of food should come from whole foods. So here was this study, okay? It just came out a couple months ago, and it was kind of this groundbreaking study, at least that everyone was saying it was groundbreaking, but to me, it was one of those studies that kind of proved what we already knew, okay? But here's what they did. They brought people in for 2 weeks and said, hey, for 2 weeks, I want you to follow a processed food diet. So they actually brought them into what they call a metabolic ward. Now, in these metabolic wards, what they do is they actually house people in kind of like a hospital almost for however long they need to. So they're controlling everything, how much food they're eating, how many calories they're consuming, what their daily activity looks like, everything. They're controlling everything. That way, what they can do is make sure that people aren't, one, either lying, two, sneaking food, three, maybe eating food they didn't realize they're eating and things like that. Because what we know with food journals, they are horrible. I don't care how good you are and how meticulously you track things. I do not trust food journals. And the reason why is because there's always things that we miss here and there, or we don't, the serving sizes may be less or more than what we think they are. And there's all these different issues. So what they did is the doctors, the researchers literally control everything to make sure what they say is there is actually there. Okay. So for 2 weeks, people followed a processed food diet. And then for 2 weeks, they followed a whole food diet. And they actually swapped those around. So some people came in and for 2 weeks followed a whole food and then followed a processed foods. Others did it the other way around. But here's what they found, okay? They gave them the exact same amount of calories, regardless of whether it was whole food or processed foods. Each meal was the exact same in terms of calories and nutrients and all those things. It's just, again, one was processed, one was not. What they found was for those who followed the whole food diet, okay, for the 2 weeks that they followed the whole food diet, they actually lost roughly about 2 pounds. For 2 pounds in 2 weeks. Not bad, right? Okay. Those who followed the processed food diet gained 2 pounds in those 2 weeks. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, thinking about that, you'd go, wait, hold on a second. Hold on. They were given the same amount of calories, but they gained weight following the processed food diet? Well, that means that processed food makes us fatter, right? That's not what it found, okay? What they found was this. When we eat processed foods, we eat more food. Because when they gave them a certain amount of calories, those who had the whole food, or when they had the whole food, they ate less of it. They left food on their plates. They felt satisfied with less food. Those who had the whole foods, the processed foods, actually ate more food, ate it faster, and that gets into another area of appetite that we'll save for another video. But they ate it faster, and they ate all of it, and so they ate more total calories. So what they found was with processed food, it affects our appetite and it causes us to want more food. It causes us to want to eat more food. And so we tend to gain more weight with that. Does that make sense? Okay, can you kind of see this idea? I mean, doesn't it feel that way also when you go out and get some processed food, you get done, you're like, I'm just not as satisfied. But when you eat whole foods, you tend to feel a little more satisfied. It fills you up a little bit faster. All right, does that make sense, everyone? Okay, now again, I mentioned that this was one of those studies that kind of proved what we already knew. You see, I want to say about 10 years ago, I read a book. I don't know when this book was written. I think it was written right around that time, but it was called The End of Overeating. Okay, and I can't remember what the author's name is, but it was a really good book. And what it kind of looked at was the different types of foods and things, and how we make foods and what happens with our brain and everything when we eat these foods. Okay, when we combine sugar, salt, and fat together in certain ways, our brain actually lights up and it says, I want more of this, right? So take French fries, for example. French fries are from potatoes. We're going to call that sugar. So when we say sugar, we mean carbohydrates in general, not just plain sugar, okay? So with the potatoes, we have carbohydrates, which sugar, okay? Then the way they make it is this way. And actually, I have a cousin who his job was creating McDonald's fries, okay? So I sat down with him one day and I said, how do they do this? What are the step-by-step processes? And he laid the entire thing out for me. Temperatures they use, all the different things they do, how they peel it, how they make sure it's the right size, all of the different things they do, how they make it so that when you bite into it, it's all fluffy, okay? So there's really cool things that they do with it like that. And but here's the interesting thing. They've got the carbs, right? The sugar. Then in the plant, what they literally do is they actually put some more fat on it. So now I've got sugar and fat on top of each other. Okay, then they add a little salt to it there. Then they bring it back to when they bring it to the restaurant, they cook it again. They put it in more fat and put more salt on it. So we got different layers of sugar, salt, and fat all together. Okay, that's why we tend to like these fries more than others. I don't know if you've ever left McDonald's and you've taken a bite of the fries and there's not enough salt on it and you're just like, oh, yuck, right? You don't like it, okay? Because there's not enough. Along with that, take your Oreo cookies. I'm a big fan of Oreo cookies, okay? Oreo cookies has sugar, right? And it has fat, and it's got a certain amount of salt in there also. Have you ever had a fat-free Oreo cookie? They're not the same. They don't taste near the same, right? Because our brain, again, is attracted to the sugar, salt, and fat combinations. That's what we find in processed foods. So that's why we are compelled to eat it. It literally lights up certain parts of our brain that say, hey, go get more of this. Okay, does that make sense? So can you see why we want, or why the processed food tends to compel us to eat more of it? Okay, now here's another thing. Quick story. So on Saturday, I went and did a presentation with a group of people. And I was talking about some of the mistakes we make when we're trying to lose fat, and none of it had anything to do with food, okay, just to be honest with you. But I shared some things, and afterwards I had this woman come up to me and she's like, here's a weird thing. She goes, I've been doing intermittent fasting for a little while. And she goes, when I fast, I feel okay. I don't have any so my appetite's fine. I don't have any cravings. And I go several days like this, and I don't know what's going on, right? I feel good. Sorry, did I say several days? I go several hours like this. Hope it's not several days. I go several hours like this, right? And she goes, and then as soon as I eat food, then my cravings all come back and my appetite goes through the roof. Why is that? And so we talked a little bit more about this. And I said, well, what are you eating for your first meal? What are you doing? Well, what she was eating was processed food. So now her appetite goes up even higher. Now she wants more food. She's feeling compelled to eat more of it. Okay? This is one reason why if I have someone following intermittent fasting, the first thing I have them do, the first meal is always a protein and vegetable meal. Because if we're doing proteins and vegetables, that automatically comes to whole foods, right? Okay? So that will help keep your appetite under control. Now, the big question is this: what is the difference between whole foods and processed foods? What is a whole food? What is a processed food? Because, let me give you an example. I have a lot of people who come to me and say, oh, I like bacon, but I want healthy bacon. So for my healthy bacon, I use turkey bacon. Now, I always hear that and go, wait, what? You think turkey bacon's healthy? Really? Over regular bacon? Okay. Now, I don't think a lot of bacon is a good thing, but some bacon's totally fine. But turkey bacon is this highly processed. I mean, where do you get the bacon from the turkey? Okay. I know where you get the bacon from the cow, the cow. Man, my brain's just all over the place. I know where you get the bacon from the pig, right? I know where, you just cut it off. That's it. Okay. You don't have to really go out and process it and take different pieces of meats and put them all together, right? So turkey bacon would be one of your processed foods. Now, another thing, you've got still cut oats versus your regular old oatmeal, right? Still cut oats literally looks like they've taken oatmeal or the oats from the field and just broke them in half, and that's it, okay? But your oatmeal is like a powder. It's been processed and processed over and over again, okay? And so our body responds differently to it. You got meats versus hamburgers that have been processed. You think about your fast food restaurants, how they have all that food. I mean, it can go years without it having mold or anything else on it or going bad. And the reason why is because of how they process it, but they also dehydrate it. So that's another big part of it. Okay. So the idea is to make sure you're getting whole foods. So whole foods are foods that are whole. They're vegetables, they're fruits. You don't have to go and look at an ingredient list to find out what they actually are. They rarely come in packages. Okay. So we want to make sure we have the majority of our food that way. Now, in saying all this, does that mean that we have to eliminate processed foods completely from our diet? No, not at all. Okay, and actually I was going to show you guys something, but I was having some technical issues with my my video. That's why I'm sitting out here in my car at the moment. Okay, but I was having some issues with my camera and everything and the audio, and so it wasn't showing what I needed to. But I wanted to show you something because just today, someone in one of my groups posted in there, and literally I've got it right here. It says, "Thank you, John Gibson, for changing my relationship with food. I had cake and ice cream for my son's birthday without guilt." Okay. I want you to be able to enjoy processed foods, enjoy cakes, enjoy donuts, enjoy ice cream, enjoy your favorite foods, but do it in a way that you're in control. The problem is most of us, we are out of control when we're having these things. We say to ourselves, I want to have freedom. And so I want to be able to eat, a cookie whenever I want to have a cookie. But a lot of times we're not eating a cookie when we want the cookie. We're eating the cookie when we feel compelled to eat the cookie. We almost feel like, if I don't eat this cookie, I'm going to go nuts. I'm going to go crazy. Someone who's in control can say, I want a cookie. But you know what? Maybe not right now. Maybe a little bit later I'll have it, but I'll have a cookie eventually. Okay? Last night we went to an activity where there's a bunch of cookies there. I personally didn't have one. When I walked away, I didn't walk away going, I need to avoid those cookies. Those cookies are bad. No, I just didn't want one at the time. Okay? And I was in control of that. I ended up having a cookie later on that night. Okay? We can have these things. We just need to be in control. You may have heard the term moderation in all things. If you actually break it down, it doesn't mean to have a little bit of all things. It means to be in control of all things. It doesn't mean to have a moderate amount. It means to moderate how much we're having, to be in control of how much we're having. Okay? So practice moderation in all things. Be in control. Have some treats here and there. Don't feel guilty about it. But make sure the majority of what you're eating is coming from whole foods, and that will make sure that you don't feel like you need to eat as much food. Your appetite will be under control. You'll feel more satisfied. You'll actually feel better, and you'll succeed. Okay? All right, so I hope this was helpful, and I will talk to you all later. Hey there, I hope you liked this video and I hope you got something from it, something you can go and apply today. And if you did, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and like this video. And more importantly, go ahead and share it with your friends so that they can get the same benefit that you have. Thanks for watching, and I've got more to share with you in the coming weeks.